This quick lecture is on force and levers. There are a few questions on the exam about this in general, but it's more important that we really understand these concepts because it helps us understand how the body is moving. So the first thing we need to understand is force. And what is force? Well, force is simply any push or pull that produces, modifies, or halts movement. So if you're changing direction, think about a baseball heading towards the batter. The batter is able to use force through the baseball bat to change the direction of the ball. You have something that's not moving at all, and then you start to push it. Now it starts rolling downhill. Something's rolling at you like a soccer ball, and you stop it. Those are all examples of force in action, modifying, halting, or producing movement. Force is mathematically calculated by the mass of an object times its acceleration, creating the unit of newtons, right there. You will not have to calculate this on the exam, but we should understand those vocabulary terms. So like I said, especially getting into understanding the newtons is how we're going to define it with a unit. Now, there are two major types of force that lead to a third, more miscellaneous kind of thing that we'll talk about. But first is internal force. Internal force, your muscles. That's what causes all your movement in your body internally. And then the second is external forces. Gravity, a free weight, a TheraBand, another person pushing you, manual resistance, buoyancy, anything outside of you is an external force that causes movement. What causes your arm to fall to the ground? Gravity. What causes your arm to float in water? Buoyancy. What makes it harder to lift your arm? What makes it slower? A free weight, for example. And all of those forces can be turned into a rotational force called torque. So you may have heard, if you pay any attention to like truck commercials, it talks about, a certain amount of pulling pounds of torque. This is what that is, the rotational component. What rotates in a truck? Well, you have, without getting overly complicated, but you have all the different mechanics leading to eventually the tires getting friction on the ground to pull the tree stump out of the ground. And there's a lot of torque and rotational movements there. So how do we create this rotation? Well, we create it through levers in our body. So we have three types of levers, super easy to know the names: first, second, and third class lever. So a first class lever, draw little examples here. So this is the fulcrum, which is the pivot point. So here's where we get our rotation. So you're like, how's a lever give us rotation? This is how. Things are going to rotate around the fulcrum. So with the first class lever, the objective is to try to use the lever for balance. Now, whether that's having two equal weights, 1 pound and 1 pound, the same distance from the fulcrum, or moving the fulcrum a little bit one way or the other if there's a little more weight on one side. But the key is balance for this. Our example in the body is the atlanto-occipital joint. So that is where the skull rests on the atlas, or C1. And when posture is optimal, the body doesn't have to use a lot of energy to keep your head from falling forward or backward. Now, when you start to change that posture, now it puts more stress on muscles to hold it up because we are no longer using our advantage of that first class lever. Second class lever. The key for this is it generates power and torque. Now, they all have torque, but the second class lever specifically is designed to maximize torque. So the example in the body is the gastroc. So let's say you raise up on your toes. So you do a heel raise. Now, when you raise up, unless you're actually standing on the tips of your toes, you're actually on the MTP joint, your metatarsalphalangeal joint. Now, let's make that lever. So you have that part of your foot on that joint. Then you have your whole body, all of your body weight, whatever you weigh, 90 pounds, 150 pounds, 250 pounds, your body weight. Even the largest people I've ever met can do a heel raise because of torque. No matter how much your body weighs, no matter how much it weighs, when you have that gastroc pulling up, it creates so much torque that it's able to lift your body up. That's what it's designed to do. What does this look like? It looks like a wheelbarrow. Think about how much you can carry, how many bricks you can put in that wheelbarrow and be able to take it across the yard with almost complete ease. It's because you're using a second-class lever. It's designed for power and torque. Now, the most common type of lever in the body is the third-class lever. It's the most common type in the body. Now, this lever sacrifices the power and torque generated by the second-class lever for speed. So it allows us to have speed. And this is a little more complicated. So we'll do our best here to try to figure this out. Oops. All right. So with this, what we're trying to do, if you think of this as like a flagpole, and this flag is laying down. So we're trying, so this is your load. And let's say you're trying to stand this flag up. So what we're trying to do is get this flag up here. So if you're going to try to lift this flag up somewhere along here to lift it up. Now, I want you to understand that the distance from, say, this point to this point has a certain amount of length, whatever that is, whatever that distance is. From here, though, from the tip of the flag to here, that is not the same distance. That is the length of the other times, I don't know, 10. I mean, it doesn't matter what that number is. I'm just making it up. So you need this end to get to the top at the same time this end gets here. It is going to get there at the same time, right? So how does it do that? Through the third-class lever. So let's take the elbow, for example. That's also the example in your PowerPoint. So you have the bicep coming down. Let's get the, so this is the pivot point. So what's the pivot point for the elbow? It's the humeral ulnar joint. So here is our elbow. So here's your hand. Oops, not hand. Here's your hand holding whatever it is. Generally, I'd say food. We want to get food to our mouth, so we need to flex our elbow. So what happens is the bicep up in the shoulder connects down here on the radius. So the bicep is going to pull up so that your hand gets to your mouth at the same time that this part of your radius also gets here. So the third-class lever is the most common in the body. It is used mostly, its advantage, let's put it that way, not mostly, its advantage is speed. It doesn't mean it can't be strong, it is. It's just, if you think about how much can you curl with your bicep, take both biceps, put a bar in your hand and lift it up. How much can you lift? Right, 50 pounds maybe for some people, maybe only 20, maybe some people here can do 100 pounds, great, mad props. But if you take those same two biceps and you use a wheelbarrow, you're going to be able to lift up hundreds and hundreds of pounds with just those biceps because you're taking advantage of the second-class lever there. So those are your class levers and your forces. If you have any questions, just email me. At the bottom of this too, you'll also see a link to these notes as well. So feel free to make a copy and add your own notes.